kids, this is my September story, and Bo and Molly are going to be here to help me tell it. What's up, Bo? You got to move. These guys love to go backpacking with me. And Haley's over there. Come here, Haley. Come here, sweetie, so you can be in the video too. Come here, little girl. Haley with the blue eyes. Okay, Bo, you need to get down so I can tell my story, buddy, okay? Okay, off, buddy. Off. My story is about Niue Island, Niue. And Niue Island is in the South Pacific between Fiji and Tahiti. So there's in the southern hemisphere. And I was lucky enough to visit Niue Island late in the year 2018. And when I was researching Niue, I bought this book, Tales of Niue, Nakudu Aha. Okay, Bo, you gotta move. They can't see through you. You make a better door than window, Bowie. Come on, buddy. Come here, Bo, come here. Up here, up, over here. No, over here. Up. That's good, right there. You gonna help me tell the story? Tales of Niue, Nuku Tudu Aha. Nuku Tudu Aha is what the Niuean people call their island in the Niuean language. I'm going to actually tell the story of the first one, the story of Fisa and Pua and Katuala and the sea snake. Katuala the sea snake and the sea god. Tales of Niue Island by Zora Feilo. So, I'll set this over here. My story. Let me tell you a tiny bit about Niue. It's known to have the clearest seawater in the world, and I was just amazed at how beautiful the seawater was. It's like when you go snorkeling or swimming in the ocean, it's like you're swimming in air because the water is so clear. They say that sometimes you can see in the ocean as far as a football field, 100 meters. And there's sea snakes in Niue that they lay their eggs on land, but they live in the ocean. They hunt crustaceans like crabs and things like that in the ocean. But since they originally came from the land, they have to breathe air. So you see them coming up to get breaths of air, like whales do, and then going back down. They're striped. Most of them are black and white stripes. Some of them I saw were kind of tannish too. But they have a very poisonous bite, their venom. And I read that the venom is so powerful that one drop could kill several people. The good thing, though, is they have small mouths and they almost never bite people. And when I was swimming in shallow water at low tide, I was sitting down in the water and a sea snake came right towards me and swam over the top of my legs. That was pretty creepy after reading about how poisonous they were. But he just kept on going. So the story of Fisa and Pua and Katuala, the sea snake. Fisa and Pua were twins. They had an English father and a Niuean mother. In Niue, they were known as half Pelagi, half white. They had long black hair and beautiful green eyes. And they lived in the town of Avatel. They swam in Avatel Bay every day. They knew the good places to swim, and they knew the places to stay away from that were dangerous, so as to not anger the sea god. There's parts in Avatel Bay where when the current's going out, there's a riptide, and it can pull you into the ocean. I found that a couple times myself, where I had to hang on to dead coral, to hard coral. to keep from being pulled into the ocean. And the current going around me was like a river. That was scary. I'll show you a video of that. I'll put it down below when I make this a web page of how strong that current was. You're a good listener, boy. So, Fisa and Pui would go down every day to Avatel Bay and swim. All the people in the village knew them. They were well loved. And they had a favorite sea snake called Katuala that they would call out to Katuala that we're here, come play with us. And Katuala would come up and swim with them and play with them. As the girls grew, they got more and more beautiful, and they didn't quite understand the power of their beauty. The sea god fell in love with Pua, and Katuala the sea snake fell in love with Fisa. Uh-oh, we hear a squirrel over there. You guys hear a squirrel? So Katuala the sea snake went to the sea god and asked him to turn him into a human so that he can be with his love, Fisa. And the sea god granted his wish, but Katuala could only be a human, a young Niuean man, after the sunset and before the sun rose in the morning. In the daylight, he would go back to a sea snake. So Katuala, the next time the girls came down to Avatel Bay to swim, he told them what the sea god had granted him, the wish he had given him, that he would be a young man at night. And he asked the girls to come back down to the Avatel Bay after dark and throw 3 stones in the water, and he would come out of the water as a young man. So the girls did that. Fisa and Pui went down. They threw 3 stones in the water, and Katuala came out of the water dripping on him, the stars shining in his eyes, and he was a very attractive young Niuean male. And Fisa's heart leaped. Katuala walked right up to Fisa and grabbed both of her hands and looked into her green eyes. And that was the moment she started to fall in love with Katuala as a young man. Pua was happy for her sister because what I haven't showed you yet is Niue is a big island. It's 100 square miles, but only just about 2,000 people live on it, Niuean natives, and there's not many young men. So Fisa was a little bit jealous, but she was happy for her sister that she found a young man to spend time with. Fisa asked Pua to please don't tell our mom and dad. Let me spend the night with Katuala and get to know him. And Pua agreed. And so, starting then, every night, Fisa would go down to the bay and swim with Katuala. Night after night, week after week, month after month, Fisa and Katuala grew more and more in love. And Fisa and Pua's parents knew something was up, something was wrong, because Fisa slept so much in the daytime. She took long naps, and that wasn't like her. But they didn't figure out what was happening. And Katuala, he went to the sea god again, and he told the sea god, I'm so in love with Fisa, but I'm a snake in the daytime, and I want to be with her all the time. When I leave her in the morning, I see her crying, tears going down her face, because it's so hard for us to part. That's just Bowie out there. Bowie, come here. That's just Bowie. And so the sea god said, I'll grant you that wish, that you can become a man all the time, on one condition, that you convince Pua to come live with me in the ocean. The sea god had fallen in love with Pua, Fisa's sister. And that made Katuala very sad, because he couldn't ask Pua to do that, to give up her life on land. But he did tell the girls what the sea god had told him. And he said, Pua, I don't expect you to do this. I cannot ask you to go to be with the sea god. But Pua was pretty clever. She came up with an idea. She told Fisa and Katuala, why don't we make a figurine, a life-size model of me? And the sea god had said that to have Pui come down to the Avatel Bay at the next full moon, and right before the moon comes up, it'll still be dark. And if the sea god thinks that I'm there ready to come to be with him, he might grant you your wish and turn you into a man all the time. And so then you can be with Fisa. That was their plan. The other two agreed, and so at the next full moon, they had a model all built underneath the cliff at Avatel Bay. They made a life-size model of Pua with sand and dirt and sticks and plants. They put a hat on it. They put hibiscus flower in her hair. And the sea god was waiting just before the moon came up, and he saw what he thought was Pua up there. And right when the moon came over the edge of the ocean, he granted his wish that Katuala would be a man all the time. And he waited for Pua to come down, but Pua didn't move. And he looked closer and he realized that he had been tricked, that he had been deceived. That was just a model of Pua up there. And Katuala ran with Fisa holding hands, and Pua went with him. They ran up to the village, and the sea god was so angry, he summoned huge waves in a giant storm to come and hit the island. And, you know, part of the island has 100-foot cliffs, and the waves were coming over the cliffs, and it destroyed a lot of the crops that the Niue natives grew around the island. It was a very dangerous storm, and actually that was the very first time a cyclone hit the island of Niue. And since then, cyclones come every few years and hit Niue. Cyclones are the same as what we know as hurricanes. In the southern hemisphere, they call them cyclones. See, our hurricanes, when they spin clockwise down below the equator. The cyclones, they spin counterclockwise. And so that's the story of Fisa and her love, Katuala and Pua. And the sea god had put a curse on the island, especially on the descendants of those three, that the curse would be that cyclones would hit their island every few years. So when I visited Niue, that's the end of my story. I'm going to tell you a little more about Niue. When I visited Niue, the coral was very beautiful. Unfortunately, see, I was there in August and September of 2018. The next January in 2019, a giant cyclone hit Niue straight on. And so I'm afraid if I go back, some of the beautiful coral that I remember won't be the same. I think I'd still like to go just because the seawater is so beautiful. When I was there, I saw white-tipped reef sharks, and I was lucky enough to go out in a boat and we saw humpback whales, and that was such an amazing experience because we were in a small boat with a motor on it, and we found the two humpback whales, and there were 5 of us, and we jumped into the ocean, and the man that was operating the boat took the boat away because sometimes whales get nervous with boats around and they leave. And so we were in the water with these 2 humpback whales down below us. We were looking at them with our snorkels and our goggles on. And one of the giant humpback whales rose up to get air right in front of us. And I have a video of it. I'll put the video on this webpage. Look down below at the bottom. And that was like an amazing experience, one of the greatest experiences of my life. It was a little bit scary because we were out in the middle of the ocean all by ourselves. And right before we saw the whales, somebody saw a big shark out there. So yeah, I was thinking a little bit about that shark that they had just seen not too long before. But so I'll show you the pictures of the clear seawater. And the other thing I want to tell you about Niue is the jungle there was, I thought the jungle was just as beautiful as the ocean. Lush vegetation. It was amazing. It was a rainforest jungle. And one time I was hiking to one of the sea tracks. They call the paths to the ocean sea tracks. And I was walking through the rainforest, and there were butterflies flying around. Little, big black and white butterflies. You know, it was just incredible. So, the other thing I want to tell you about Niue is that you're not allowed to own land on Niue unless you're a native, a Niuean native. Well, that's kind of neat. That means outsiders can't come in and buy up all the land and build hotels and resorts. Also, the first European to discover Niue was Captain Cook in the late 1800s. And he tried to land his boat, come on shore with his men 3 times, and the Niuean natives threw spears at him. And they had painted their face with red banana that grows on the island, and Captain Cook thought it was blood. And at one time, one of the spears almost hit him. So he gave up trying to land and make contact with the Niuean people, and he named the island Savage Island. And that was the name of that island for a long time. And Europeans didn't try to land there. So the Niuean people were never conquered. Eventually missionaries came and landed on the island and taught the people English. It's kind of neat when you go to Niue because the natives speak the Niuean language, but almost all of them know English. And that's because even though Niue is a separate country, it's underneath the Commonwealth of New Zealand. And in New Zealand, they speak English. So the people in Niue are taught English. So you have no trouble communicating when you're there. So I just had a great experience there. And yes, I would like to go back. No international visitors have been allowed to go to Niue last year or this year because of the pandemic. And there's no telling when it'll open up. So I don't think it's going to happen next year. Maybe 2023, perhaps. But that's my story. And I'm going to put some links about Niue and my pictures of Niue down below on the webpage, and at the very bottom are the videos. So check them out. This is my September story. Thanks for listening. And I love coming up here to the wilderness and telling stories for you kids. If we get to the point where I can come into the classrooms without wearing a mask, then I'd be thrilled to come in and tell you stories in person, maybe in a few months. This pandemic has been hard for all of us, but at least most of us survived, I hope. So be well, kids, and again, thanks for listening.